All right, guys, let's get rolling. I wanted to kind of, who was, give me a wave if you were here last week for the sit down. Just give me a wave with your hands. Okay, gonna kind of go from there. We'll take it wherever we'll watch the questions. We got coaches on with us and Pete, but I want to start sort of where we left off last week. And the reason is we had more AO activity. Am my slide showing, guys? Yes, good. Thank you. All right. I need tech support. I am definitely low tech. So we have more AO activity, phone calls, asking coaches for help than we've ever had. And that's the AO deal I showed you guys last week. And I love it. And I wanted to keep going. And just today, I tag team one with Judy. I think that'll go into agreement. And Corolla and John Russell were in our office today because they're chairmen. And we had a 2-day mastermind for chairmen. And I literally did the same thing, Judy, for them. And the guy said, yeah, send it to me. Because when you do the AO properly, it's next to impossible for a seller to say, no, don't try. That doesn't work. Next to impossible. So I love the AO. I'd encourage you guys to get a hold of last week's recording. I think because it was so popular, we kept it, and you guys can get it, email support. What I wanted to do, though, is transition to a couple of things, and here's why. I want to show you sort of the big picture. Again, I flashed a little bit last week on the sandwich. I want to show you my very, very, very first sandwich, which was originally a 2 or 3 year deal, and we still own it. So that doesn't get you thinking, and I'll show you how and why it transitioned. And then I want to talk a little bit about Rusty and Nick are on. I want to talk about the big deal. Rusty literally just closed, and it got funded last night or this morning, whatever it was. Because at the Summer of Deals, we're going to tear into a lot of this. In particular, Nick and Rusty, when I was doing the 3 paydays yesterday with Sue for Rusty's deal, there are a lot of cool nuances that got done in that. And then Nick did another deal recently that had some totally new nuances. He wasn't even here, and I was going through trying to figure out how he did the paydays. Those are all going to be at the Summer of Deals event next Friday, which is all virtual if you're new to these sit downs. So let's talk about, if I can get my slides to move. Let's talk about the sandwich I want to talk about this. Write down questions you might have, please, and we'll go over it. Then I'll pull the slides down. We'll see what questions we have, and then we'll do some open Q&A in that way. And I don't care which direction it goes. This deal was started in September or October of 2013, and the woman. I'll give you the background just because people say, well, how do you know if it should be an AO or a sandwich or what, how do you know what bucket? This woman had this on the market with a realtor. It's on a dead end right there. She was going to Florida and frustrated as all could be. She was on for I want to say 229.9 or 219 or something like that. And if she had sold it, she maybe would have broke even. She owed like 189 and change or a little less. And so I went, because I was new, not new in real estate, of course, but because I was new to the creative real estate, I was a little nervous. I had done about 11 or so AOs and no sandwiches yet. So my brain was going AO. And when I got there and realized, okay, there's no money in this for her. She's not trying to fight over a spread. She needs to go to Florida. I pivoted to a sandwich for just the amount that's owed on the property. That's it. No cash to her. I did structure at that time a 36-month term. And if you notice, these numbers are going to be important in a second. We sold it for 219 the first time. Nick and I happen to own a building right down the street from this. So it was like, okay, really convenient. The first buyers that went in there got separated about, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years into this deal. So we had to resell it. And this is only a 2-bedroom. So it's not like the 2 bedrooms go as fast. They just don't. So we resold it. The gentleman that went in there, I don't know what it is with this house, but the gentleman that went in there, they got separated. They're supposed to get married. They get separated. But he was phenomenal. And to this day is in the house. His name is Drew. Now, so what took place between then when 2 people got separated, we had to resell it, to now? What happened was I knew the woman in Florida wanted this thing out of her name, even though the loan's still in her name to this day. She wanted the house out of her name. She always did, and during the sandwich. So towards the end of the term, I called her and said, she's not getting any money, remember? I called her and said, If we transfer the deed, you at least don't have to worry about it. The loan's gonna stay in your name. I'll pay for the expenses and I'll send you a check for $2,500. It was incentive. She needed money like she needed water. She was really not in a good spot. So she did it. We did a FedEx back and forth closing with our attorney, and we own the property. So we've owned it since roughly 2016-ish. The property now we owe well less than 100. I don't know what the number is. And the property's worth in the threes. This entire time, obviously, we haven't come out of pocket one penny. The original deal was what you see on the screen. $9 grand down from that buyer. I don't even have the second buyer here. The monthly spread's pretty decent, over $300. And then if it had cashed out way back then, a 40 grand payday 3. We are well into the multiple six figures now on this little 2-bedroom ranch. So when someone says to us, well, can you do 2 bedrooms? This is the first thing we ever did, the first sandwich. It's almost like I can't let go of it now. We'll probably own it forever. Now, the gentleman, why didn't he buy it that's in there? Since his fiance has left in like 15 or 16, he fell into rental mode. He knows he can't buy it for the original price, and he is just a tenant. We don't talk to him. He doesn't cause us headaches. He puts cash in the bank every month, and he's one of the best I've had. And because it was our first house, we leave him in it. So it's strictly a buy and hold. So if that doesn't get you thinking a little bit about all the different options you can do in this, because this could have been an AO in and out, gone in a week, turned into a however many years it's been, 10 years on this one house. So you can have plenty of these. Now, to get you thinking, what I wanted to do here tonight is, I showed you this last week, so just a quick glimpse before I go to the next slide. But what I remember like it was yesterday, for those of you that are newer, going home, remember now, for those of you that don't know my story, I went from a 2.5 acre lot overlooking Newport Harbor to a 1-bedroom, 900 square foot apartment for $950 a month to dig out of the crash. And I remember walking home from the office, because I didn't have a car then, after all this crap. And I said to Kim, my wife, look what built up. Now, however many properties this is, I showed you guys this last week. The total, all 3 paydays, was 1.8 million, and then net payday 2s net. Outgo income net was 14 grand. And so it goes fast in hindsight. But I know when you're in the trenches, deal 1 or deal 2 can feel like it's grueling. This week alone, we're on June 8th. So 8 days in June, there's a handful of firsts in our community. And I can tell you what happens after they break their first deal. The floodgates open every single time. So I want to give you a glimpse if you're thinking, how hard is it going to be to lift that boulder for the first deal? It can sometimes feel grueling, but it'll go fast. Those are actual deals we did. Then I wanted to fast forward to this, and I want to show you some multifamilies. I want to get you thinking about what can be possible, and then summer deals will show you all kinds of good stuff. This is, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, I don't think I've showed the coaches this. This is a student in Atlanta. The coaches know him. I'll give you his first name. It's Roger. And he did this deal before COVID. During COVID, he had a headache. He had to do work to it. They left. I won't call it a rehab, but he had to do work to it. Bottom right is his company. He never owned it. It was a sandwich. Bottom right is his company, because when you do a sandwich to payday 3, you're listed as typically an option release fee. This title company wrote tenant reimbursement. So it doesn't matter, whatever they want to call it, we don't care. And his payday 3 was $93,000. Now, candidly, I think he came out of pocket at the end of this during COVID, because he got stuck with it for several months. He probably came out of pocket 15 or 20 grand. But the end payday was, almost $100,000. Again, done pre-COVID. During all of COVID, this get you thinking about how the safety of this. During all of COVID, Nick and I and Zach and the family team, we probably carried the most properties we've ever carried. Coincidentally, we had built up to like 19. We were in the 60s probably then, 62, maybe 65 properties. We've since sold a lot of them off, but during COVID, we had 3 or 4 headaches total. Think about that. If we were landlords and we had 60 properties, we probably would have 55 headaches with the tenants, right? Because the government was giving all kinds of incentives away and almost incentivizing them to be tough tenants. We had 4 or whatever it was instead of 55. Because why? Because when Nick trains you how to put the right buyer in the house, and we've gone through a lot of painful things to get here. When he does that, the buyers treat their home like a buyer, regardless of COVID, regardless of if the family member gets sick, regardless if the toilet got clogged, they got to get financing. And to do that, they got to stay current. They got to act and behave like a buyer. And that's who we put in the homes. And we make mistakes and we put wrong buyers in homes and we've learned the hard way. But by and large, that's why we didn't have headaches during COVID. But even when the headaches come, you have a nice way to get out of it.
Can I interject something?
Yeah, go ahead. And then I want to jump to you and Rusty anyway.
Yeah, the few headaches that we had were a result of us not taking a qualified buyer and rushing through the process just to stop the bleeding. So this is all avoidable. Every headache is avoidable, or most of them, let me say.
100%. Now, I'll tell you guys this. How do you avoid the headache? If you're in the community, you call 1-800, call Nick, and he helps you with the buyer. I said to Nick, he just got back from New York, seeing his mentor today. And I said, you have about 4 or 5 people that just got new takings in our community, and this is their first deal. So it's an exciting day tomorrow as he starts to roll out pricing plans and solds. I want to show you guys something. If you're not in the community, especially, is a Slack showing? Someone tell me.
Yes.
Okay, guys, right here in the middle of the screen, Rusty's ahead of our leaderboard. He kind of watches it and posts. There happens to be some pictures here you're seeing. That's from Chairman's Club. But right here in the middle of the screen is what Rusty posted last night at 7 p.m., where he posted some new deals that are going on. Mallory, 3 weeks in the business, is it? Or something like that? Does it say here? Yeah. No, it doesn't say here. 10 weeks. First 10 weeks. Okay. She had her first sub 2. Her payday 1 projected 37 grand, all 3 paydays 97. Who's the next one? Jose. Jose's on here. Congrats, Jose. He did his first sold of a property he owned. We help associates do that with no split. Nick helped him, but this is his first true taken that has nothing to do with his own properties. I didn't look at the 3 paydays, Jose, but if your projections are right, a little under 50 grand, woohoo. And then Rusty closed the deal, payday 1 yesterday for $100,000. Payday 1's 200,000, but he got 100 up front at the closing with the title company. That's pretty cool. And here's why I wanted to bring this up, guys. I've been screaming for since interest rates started going up, that there's no better time for creative. There's not in my 32 years. And everybody that's bearing down is starting to feel it. It's the best time to do this. And if you do it right, you read books, you hear stories, not just in real estate, of people who kind of caught the wave or did it at the right time. It's a great time right now for creative real estate. Now, please don't take that the wrong way. I am not saying it's easy. Until we talked for 2 hours with the chairmans yesterday morning as we opened the mastermind, telling them how hard business is in general, how hard entrepreneurship is in general, how hard this business is in general. It doesn't change. And as you get busier and bigger, your problems just get bigger. You learn how to deal with them. So I don't want to in any way insinuate it's easy. I am telling you that there's a wave right now that you should get on. That's all I'm saying. Rusty and Nick, we're not going to do all 3 paydays time-wise because I want to stop and do questions. But let's talk about, Rusty, I'm thinking out loud, maybe the source of that deal, the type of structure, like I think it was a combo, sub 2, whatever it was. And then any ahas or lessons you learned, because I know you had some frustrations and then all of a sudden you had all this activity. So thoughts, and then Nick will fill in where he wants to help.
Yeah, so it was an expired. The seller had 2 buyers, and you talk about fractured buyers. It was 2 fractured buyers that came in. I think he was trying to sell it at 580. No,
okay, Rusty, for everybody to know, he lost 2 buyers. We're calling them fractured because Wall Street Journal reports on this, but they watch fractured closings. They watch closings that died. That's what that is. So he had a ripe seller that had 2 buyers. This is normal now in this market, that they fell apart. Perfect for us to help. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so he tried to sell it at 780, got the 2 fractured buyers. He had it on the market at 730. He dropped it all the way to 730, tried to get it off the market. Wasn't selling, expired. So I came in. He had 2 mortgages going on. He had another house with a $6,000 payment, and then this one, which was $4,000. So he was coming out of pocket 10 grand. I said, I can take that off of your hands. And
he wasn't behind, Rusty, was he?
No, he's not behind. He had 2 loans going. I said, hey, I'll do this right now. He had $300,000 in equity, so we structured like a combo, like it's another note. to pay him off on or before 48 months, 0%.
So a sub two with the
Sub two.
existing language, but because he had equity, an owner financing component on top of that.
Right. Now, I guess the nuance was I closed in February, meaning I had to start making payments. And
He didn't make it contingent upon a buy. He just went after it and closed.
right. So the frustrations Chris was talking about was I was bleeding now without a buyer in there, and I was, had anxiety. I leaned on Chris and Nick tremendously, and you guys can see that if you saw that post, thanking Nick because of all the patience he had with me and all the things I had to go through mentally.
Well,
me say this,
Rusty,
Rusty.
what's just, sorry, Deb, what's just coming up to me? Do you remember or can you share with everyone the level of the quality of buyers, the low end quality of buyers that were calling us about this property, and just your experience with that? Because we dealt with that properly. We were able to locate this other buyer. He was able to rise to the surface with 100,000 down today. So do you want to talk about that a little bit? I think that's important to preach patience.
Right. So if you guys don't know, after they view the property and they fall in love with it, they're interested, they fill out a next step form, right? So what happens with the next step form? Chris, Nick and I will get on the phone with them. We'll go over the pricing plan, what they can put down, right? And then there's probably 3 or 4 that only can put down like 10,000. And we're like, no, we need 3%, which is, I think 24K was the minimum. So, and I was getting anxious. I'm like, well, let's just accept them and maybe they can put more down later on, right? Because I wanted to stop the bleeding. So Nick's like, no, stick to the game plan, be patient. And then all of a sudden these guys came in with, 100K and another 100K in a year. So it's like, wow, this is wow.
I wrote a couple things down that from you and Nick. One is for everybody to know, especially not in the community, there are some people that report to me nightly and some people that report to Brian nightly. And then the coaches all do that within their groups too. Mike's on here with starters and I'm sorry, with immersion, and Steve's on here with starters. In many nights, Rusty, I don't know how many, but many nights, I got the frustrating call. And then he was trying to convince me and Nick that he should rent it because he didn't want to wait for the buyer. It would have been one of the worst things he could have done. So congrats. There's a lot of learning lessons. And what's cool is Rusty coaches all of you. If you decide to come in at any point in the program, he coaches you for 90 days in the onboarding. And man, what lessons that came out of that. Any other ahas, Nick? And then I want to take some questions because some are building up just from this deal and probably from the other stuff I talked about before we pivot to the
one aha, and this is also Rusty can also attest to this, and this is also something that came up in the deal in Colorado, Winter Flower, that we just closed earlier this week. The thing was, this buyer was all over Rusty, and if Rusty can just have his 2 cents on that, but he was all over him like, I need this house yesterday. Call me. I need this house. But their urgency is not our urgency. So we return calls once a day. And if they don't answer, then it's going to have to wait until the next day. And by controlling our schedule and not letting the buyer dictate, oh no, hurry up, I have an emergency, I need to talk to you, I need a house, we were able to secure a really strong buyer with a really strong down payment. Because if you jump as soon as people, if you react to people that they're, oh my God, hurry up, I need this, call me right away, and call them on their schedule and not your schedule, you're going to be subject to their whims and their emotions and everything, and you're not going to be able to control the deal. So Rusty, if you can speak a few minutes on that.
Yeah. Before this buyer, there was that one guy that was just like, I love this house when we want it, but he only had 10 grand up front, but he was being promised by this nonprofit organization he was going to get 180,000 that he had to spend, right? but he couldn't come up with proof that he had that money. And we kept telling him, hey, we need proof of this if we're gonna let you in. Because we were seriously considering it because he had that much money, but he couldn't prove it. And then he didn't have his W-2, like he didn't have proof of his income. We had
Well,
heard. about his.
yes, and what I was talking about was these buyers, Tommy, these buyers that we ended up
Oh,
accepting.
yeah.
They were all over us, like, you gotta call us back, we need this house.
Yeah.
And Rusty and I treated it like every other buyer and put them through the same process and the same system that we put all of them through.
Yep.
And by the time it got to us on the phone, we have been going back and forth for a week or maybe even more. So when we got on the phone to review their next step forms, we were in control of the conversation. They were not in control of the conversation. This is what we need to see for our program, and you're either a fit for it or you're not. And I think this is important to mention, because if it wasn't this way and we just called them right back and we're like, oh, we'll help you kind of thing, there's a great chance that we'd have a lot less of a down payment. And it's not just about us. The higher they get their down payment, the stronger they are to a lender, and the stronger that they're going to be able to go forward and get their own loan. So it works for everyone. It's a win-win-win.
And they're vested. They're not running away from that kind of money.
Yep.
Which is what you want, a true buyer. Let's do some Q&A. Before I do that, I want to show you guys, those of you outside the community, we're talking about scripts and AO and all these new things that are popping up because the market's changing. Just one of the channels in Slack, you guys can see the scripts channel here. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mike. Out of 85 people, I got one yes. Awesome. So on the scripts channel here, there's a call I just posted for Judy, who's on here right now. This was today at 1:24. I called her seller back for her. We tag team this. It's a full 13 minutes of Q&A on AO. There's another one up here. There's a whole next step form call that Nick did with one of the buyers we just closed on in Colorado. So this is current stuff, guys. This is what you get to do. You get to camp out. That's just the script channel. If you look over to the left, there's all kinds of channels in here, but that's just the script channel. So you probably saw on the right-hand screen, it was me critiquing one of the students' calls. Another thing, it will take your learning curve, shorten it dramatically just by sending us calls to listen to. Let's do some Q&A here. Judy. Oh, that's Russell answered it. Okay. What's not answered up here? Any questions, guys?
Juan said,
It was in California.
yes, Southern California, where you can't do deals.
Okay, Juan, a good question. Nick, I'd like you to hit this on one of the coaches. I know you try to get as much time from a seller as possible. Yes, especially this market. Do you do the same for the buyer, meaning better to lease for 60, 36, 24? This is a great question. Nick, do you want to hit that? And if any of the coaches want to chime in after that, please. Is Nick here? Oh, Nick might have scooted. All right. Who wants to answer that? I'd like, is Mike on? Mike McCready's on, right? Somewhere?
Yes, sir.
Mike, thoughts on this? This is I don't think I've had this question come up, and it's a really good one. I should do this on a Q&A.
Yeah, typically what I do is we always like to have the most leverage in all of our deals, right? When we're setting them up. So I typically only sign the buyer up for how long they need to become mortgage ready, right? And we find that out through a third party that we go through to screen our buyers. That way, if the deal for some reason weren't to work out with the buyer, right, and they couldn't fulfill their agreement and cash us out with their loan, we have the leverage to go back and renegotiate, or either like increase their monthly payment, increase the overall sale price. The ball is going to be in our court on what we want to do at that point with our buyers, right? Because they're in breach of their contract. I don't know, Chris, if you want to add to that, but leverage is a big thing, right? You want to be able to in control of your property in all fronts.
Yeah, spot on. The other thing, there's pros and cons to the longer terms, guys, right?
Sure.
What Mike said puts him right back in the driver's seat if they screw up. If they don't screw up, can Mike extend it? Yep. So understand this, especially when things like COVID come about. Longer terms for us are great. Longer terms for a buyer means more time for something, a life event to happen, right? Because that's what happens. As time passes, stuff happens to you. So potentially. So if you have a long term, like a sub 2 deal with an infinite end, like that house I just showed you, I like the thought of owner financing a buyer after the first 2 years, say, at that checkpoint. That's a phenomenal strategy. It adds, I won't even call it a payday 4. It dramatically increases the paydays. Like you had tens of thousands of dollars when you become the bank. Juan, great question.
Every
Keep the
situation is
terms tight.
different, right, Chris? I mean, you have to look at each deal that you have and analyze it and see which route you want to go as far as the exit strategy, right?
Yeah, and that plays into the term.
Sure.
There's other ones that you can't even, let me give you guys a crazy deal. I had a deal in Michigan with Dave. We still have it. And I'm going to try to remember how crazy this was. We tied the house up because the seller was frustrated because they owed close to what the value was, but then they had liens on there. And so he's like, I can't get anything out of this. I'm just going to file bankruptcy or whatever. So we said, no, don't file bankruptcy. Our attorney found out that the liens, the statute of limitations was about to end in like another 2 years, meaning they go away. Statute of limitations go away. So he was frustrated. He didn't know that. And he just left. We bought the thing sub 2. We picked up whatever the liens were. I think it was 180 grand. We picked up like 180 grand worth of equity because the liens ran out. And so in that case, when Dave was selling it, to Mike's point, we couldn't have him cash out within 2 years. We had to put a stipulation that they can't exercise that option, even if they were qualified to take us out within 2 years, because those liens were still on there. So there's all kinds of nuances. I could go on with story after story. Fact is, with you kind of go through all the deal structure videos on YouTube, you'll see scenario after scenario after scenario, which keeps me in the game because it never gets boring. But that's why the community is so important to lean on, right? I get texts from the coaches still who are really good, but there's still stuff that comes up. And how do I do this? How do I work around it? I get stuff that throws me for a loop, and I've been at this 32 years. So I say that for you guys that are new to say, the QLS course is awesome, but make sure you show up here. If you're out there trying to do a deal and you're not an associate, make sure you show up here with your nuances. I don't want to see you get yourself into a pickle. And there's no reason to. The answers are all here. Like, they're all here. And if you don't think they're here, or if you can't make it here, rather, sorry, then I would come to the QLS live event, come to the Summer Deals event, get around we can get your answers. Okay.
Oh, Chris, I was gonna touch on, they have another 100,000 coming in a year, so they're gonna be having $200,000 down. They're gonna get to that 20% threshold.
Yeah.
Don't have to pay the seller his equity for 48 months. So we might convert that to a seller financing.
Yeah.
Plus the principal pay down. I don't know if you knew this, but the principal pay down on the loan is $2,300 a month.
I saw that in the deal structure sheet. I was like, man.
Yeah. So as long as as far as if I can keep that as long as I can, then it's high 6 figures, not just,
You guys, I hope everybody has got Rusty. Rusty will never pay. He paid the mortgage 3 months. He'll never pay that mortgage again. And $2,300 is going into his bank account by way of equity. Locked in. Pretty cool. George asked a question I want the coaches to answer. What do you say to a seller when they ask how they are protected? For some reason, you do not make the payment on their loan. Let me preface it with this, and I want the coaches to give you a script because I want you to be able to use this, George. You are getting that until the sellers sense that the confidence in you, that question won't come up. I used to get it 2012, 13. I do not get that question anymore. It's your posturing, your confidence with your scripts. Coaches, scripts for him though, because if you'll get the occasional person asking no matter what.
Well, great
Yeah, I
question.
mean,
Oh, go ahead, Mike. Yeah,
I would basically say, if we're responsible for the payment, if we stop making payments, we're leaving money on the table, right? I mean, it is our responsibility to make those payments. We'd be walking away from our investment, our money that we've paid in and paid down up to this point. You got to remember, for every payment that we're making, we're getting the benefit of the principal pay down, right? So that equity that we've been building in for I don't know how many years we've been making payments for, we're walking away from it, right? Secondly, if we were to walk away from it, they will capture that principal pay down because they get to keep all the payments that we've given up to that point, right? We'll be walking away from our money. So they're in a good position either way, if that were to happen. But to be honest, we have a very, very low percentage. I mean, I can't even remember one really where we walked away and had to hand the house back. But the sellers, if they were to get the house back, they'd be in a great position because they would have a lot more equity in the property than they did from the beginning, right?
Yep.
So
Absolutely. Rusty, if you're going to tack onto that, and I have an idea too for everybody.
Yeah, great question, Mr. Seller. I'm part of a national group. We're approaching 1,000 transactions. We've never defaulted. And so, that's something that we don't do. Morally and ethically, we would not do that. Anyway, is there any major repairs I need to know about your house? Is it your roof? Is the plumbing good? And then
you pivoted away, is what you
did. Pivot off of it. We don't do that. We've never have. Anyway, tell me more about your house.
Yeah, it's when you hang on it that they sense more uncertainty. I love so when you guys are in the community, you lean on the community. I'm part of a community. We're the foremost experts in the country with doing creative real estate, and we're part of the Creative Finance and Real Estate Association. It's super powerful. Rick Abbiati, who's driving home right now from being here, uses it on so many calls that I could do. I bet you on almost every call he uses that he's part of the Creative Finance and Real Estate Association. It's very powerful. Secondly, let's talk about legal. How am I protected? I would ask them if they pressed it. If Rusty was my seller, I'd say, Rusty, do you think banks do pretty well with few exceptions, like they've been around forever? Yeah. You're protected just like a bank. You have a first mortgage, and then just move away from it. Get off the question. There's one more, just to give you an idea. And I did this a few times. There's a few states you can't do this. But I remember our dear friend Don, who passed away in Pennsylvania. He was brand new. So picture you, brand new. He called me and he was panicking because the seller said, I had done one of the calls for him. And the seller said, well, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it with your partner. He didn't know me. He just knew that I had been around longer. I said, okay. So we put it in our entity to make him feel better. But then his attorney said, well, we still have to foreclose if you guys stop paying. Sort of like this question that George asked. So what we did is we said, fine, we'll structure, we'll buy it, owner financing. We'll structure we'll sign a deed back to you, Mr. Seller, and your attorney can hold it in escrow with a half a page or a page default agreement that says if we don't pay, no hard feelings, you don't foreclose, you don't spend a dime, you go down and record your deed, you get your house back. Now, again, I have done it once, but I've used it with sellers who then forget they even asked it, and you go do the deal. To Rusty's point, you just get off the question. They're only asking you because they're not feeling your confidence yet. Okay. All right. Good question. Once again, Judy wanted to know how much that mortgage was, Russ. I know she's just trying to put salt in your wound, but how much was the mortgage?
No, you know what? Can we whiteboard this?
Yeah, at the summer deals, we're doing it. Yeah, we're gonna do it summer deals. Yeah.
4K a month. So
he is on the agenda.
Yeah, 4K a month. So note to self, make sure you have capital behind you if you're gonna do that. What I did.
Yeah, okay, good point, Rusty. So here's the thought. If you guys run into a deal, you know this by now if you've been hanging out with us. If you run into a deal and you go, this is a killer deal, but I can't make it contingent upon a buyer, before you throw it away, call us and we'll decide if we want to do it. The deal we just closed, we got wired last night, 62 grand. It was a deal that a student, not in the community. So if you're not in the community, this, I hope will get you thinking, but you leave money on the table doing this. His name is Kevin. Kevin sent us a deal. Kevin, we give Kevin a 20%, I think it was, referral fee to send this deal to us. We worked it. Our team worked the whole thing. All you had to do is boots on the ground. Like, go do this. Go make sure you can set this up. Go see the seller. He helped us be the boots on the ground in Colorado. I'm not there. We closed on it. Nick got a tremendous buy with 50 down this week. And that's the one that got funded last night, 62, because Nick structured, this was a new one on me. We'll do this at summer deals. Nick structured a prepayment of payday 2. Rusty, you get a kick out of this, 10 grand to lower his monthly payment a little bit. I haven't seen, Nick hasn't done that in a while. So we get 10 extra grand. And then of course, first month, so we had 62 grand on closing on that thing. And I'm telling you guys that if you're an associate, you're going to make a lot more money. But if you think you run into a deal and you just can't do it yet, or you're not in the community yet, don't throw it away. Call us. We'll put it we have a company that does that type of deal with you called Crossroads. And that's how we get that deal done. And he'll get a check today. We'll mail checks out today. Okay, side note. Do they get it back via foreclosure, George? I answered that. They could, but you can make it easier on them and just structure a deed back to them with a default agreement. I think that's it for questions. Okay. Anyone, any other questions? And if you want, I can show you how this works with multis just to get you thinking before some of our deals too. All right, yell if you do. Thank you for posting that, you guys.
Morgan has a question, Chris.
I have a
Okay,
question.
sorry, Morgan.
This is about AOs. So I've been talking to sellers about AOs, and two in particular are like thinking about renting. I'm explaining how this is way better than renting, but then they go, okay, well, how long? Because I think they've already had some interest for the
How
rental.
long did you tell them?
So I say I could work at it for 120 days or something
Oh,
like
how
that.
long to market it? Sorry, okay.
And they're like, oh my gosh, I would have to wait. No, it doesn't have to take that long. It could go really quick, but maybe so, but then they have in their head that they have a renter like in a couple
I
of
get
weeks.
it. I get it.
What do you do with that?
Yep. Okay, here's my answer. We can play with this a little bit. I need to know their motivation, all that, but for tonight, I answer, if you listen to the call on the script channel, I did like 3 AO calls this week. My answer was 5 to 120 days. That's all it's gonna take. 5 to 120. Why? Because some houses we do, that weekend we put them on, they're gone. Literally, they're gone. And some take up to 120. Now, if they don't want to wait to 120, they want to be the landlord. Honestly, I'd say, look, if you want to be a landlord, you might be calling me in 6 months or 12 months with a major headache because it could cost you 20 or 30 grand. I've been there. I say confidently to them, I've been there. I would never want to be a landlord, but if you want to go that route, just call me if it doesn't work or you get an eviction. And then I would talk about COVID and how awful it was with tenants. Like this reality. So you're not talking out of school here. And instead I could set you up to get the same cash flow, never get a landlord call ever. And our default rate's in the 2 to 5% range. That is a lot better than tenants. So that's my answer to them. But Morgan, if they want to, like, if they're teetering on, well, I'll just be a landlord. Usually if they say they want to be a landlord, I can convert them to an AO, with very few exceptions. So hope that gives you some ammo.
Yeah, that's great. One follow-up question is, so then a couple of them have said, all right, I'll do the AO for like 30 days and then I'm just gonna rent it if you don't find a buyer. And I have said, I'll take that back to my team. Like, that's not usually how we do it.
It's kind of not enough. Here's why. Here's what I would tell them. I'd say, Morgan, 30 days sounds good, but I would need 30 days if you even want to do it. I would need 30 days from when I get up and running. It takes us a couple of weeks to get this thing exposed and on the different portals and all that. But I frankly, right now, I definitely wouldn't do it. But when I was brand new, I'm trying to think if I ever did one that quick. I don't think so. I think I may have teetered with 60 days after the 2-week ramp up. But again, if you're not there to fight with anyone, you're there to say, we got a solution. If it doesn't work, call me. Because man, I just, after COVID would not want to be in the tenant world right now, landlord mode right now. Okay. Any other questions? If not, I want to show you something about multis. We got a few minutes. You guys, if you see a question pop up, yell to me like you just did. And I want to share my screen because too many people think, is the slides back up?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Too many people think you can't, like, let me say this before I give you the shiny object. Owner financing, sub 2, lease purchase, any asset class. Planes are done that way. Boats are done that way, more so than you imagine on the higher level even. Large multifamily units are done that way. So I don't want you to think in the box. I also at the same time don't want you to have shiny object syndrome and going looking for everything. The point is, when you're doing these deals, your VA will stumble upon multi-units. It's just a fact. So here's a 4-unit we did. The gentleman was a professor, not financially like problem at all. He had a FISBO. And when I called him, he was selling for $259,900. And when I asked him if he could wait, he said, yeah, my two girls are going to be in college. I think it was like in 3 years or 4 years. I don't need it all, but I just want to know that it's done. Like he's just done with it. And he kept it up very, very well. I structured 10,023 per month principal only. Think about this in any market condition. My net was $735 after paying a management company because we're not going to run it. And I'm showing you this to get you thinking, because this is not a tenant buyer situation. The goal here is what? 48 months of $1,000 getting paid down. Thank you, free money. Market appreciation or not, right? And then increase the net operating income. When you do a 4-unit or higher, that's the goal, in my opinion, in our model. How do you increase net operating income? You inch up rents, you inch down expenses, you keep property up. We added laundry and just little things like that. The end result here, this is very short term too. Whoops, went too far. After the time period, I had a $49,000 principal pay down, 49,000. So the difference there between the payoff and what I sold it for, I sold it for $279,900 on the open market, was 69 grand, plus the monthly cash flow, it was kind of rounded down, of $35,000, 100 grand. Now, what's not on the screen is another technique we use on singles even, and that is we owed them a little, I think we owed them like 212 or 14, and we got them down to like 207 or whatever it was. It was about 8 or 10 grand. We got them down by calling them and saying, hey, we didn't say we had a buyer. We called them and said, we may be coming across some cash. I may be able to pay you off earlier than the 48 months. I think it was like month, I don't know, 38, 40. He said, sure. He counted me once, but we came, bottom line is we got money just by asking by paying off early. Rusty, with that owner financing deal he has, with the owner financing component of his deal, if he has another big deal going on, or if his buyer's going to cash out early, guess what he's going to do? He's going to call the seller. Hey, good news. I'm calling all my sellers. I may be coming across some money, or he could even say my buyer might be able to cash it early, but I got to give him some incentive. What's the best you could do on that note if I pay it off early? Almost every time the seller's going to discount it. And you pick up a payday for. It's just another technique. And I just wrote IRA because I did a bunch of those in my IRA. If you're in a position in life where you're okay and you don't need that next deal, or you don't need every deal and every third or fourth you can park in your IRA, that's what we did with a few of those multi. So I just wanted to share that. And we have a commercial worksheet where you plug all that in and it tells you what you should do and how you should buy it. Do that with the students in Slack. But I just wanted to tonight say to you that you're not in a box with creative financing. In fact, it's the complete opposite. I'm not telling you to go out and buy boats and planes and cars on owner financing, but I am saying you can. And you can do multis. All right. You guys, summerdeals.com, coupon code WSSD next Friday. I'm gonna be in Vermont for a few days. I'm gonna work on these deals and I can't wait to present them. It's all virtual, just like this. Zach and I and some of the coaches, we're going to whiteboard, to Judy's point. We're going to stop. We're going to let you rip it apart, ask questions. And as the day goes on, it'll probably get more detailed. We're going to start off with AOs, transition to sandwich, then transition to sandwiches and how you get them to turn to sub twos, like I showed you in my first deal, and owner financing, and then owner financing sub two combined. So really, really cool stuff. Put you in a position to really get out there confidently. That's what the whole idea is here. When you're confident with sellers, you don't have competition. You don't. You're going to run into wholesalers and flippers. You're going to run into very few creative financing people that know what the heck they're doing. And you're going to run into even fewer that are part of the Creative Financing Real Estate Association. So therefore, you have little to no competition. But now's the time to jump on it. We got about 3 or 4 minutes. Anyone have any questions? Anything? Like, doesn't have to be on a deal. Anything at all? Except for buying a plane or a boat. Rusty, Mike, anyone have any additional thoughts? Congrats to those who had deals. I'm going to look at my leaderboard, but Jose's on here. Rusty, I don't know if you have access to the June leaderboard, but I think we're at like 5 or 6 new take-ins and 3 closings, and it's June 8th.
Yep.
Pretty cool. Very similar. It reminds me very similar of when I started earlier, when the market was kind of going through some changes. It reminds me of the beginning of COVID before things got hot. That's what this reminds me of right now. Whenever there's chaos, or uncertainty is even better. And then uncertainty comes with the media stupidly screaming, helping us because they panic sell us. That's time to go ahead and grab a bunch of deals.
So Rusty, how long after on the deal that you were talking about, how long after the failure to close did you contact the owner? And how did you find out about it?
Failure.
Expired.
It was expired, so this
So-
is back, it expired in November. I contacted him, so I did create a little window where he made payment November, December, and January, and then I closed in February.
No, I just meant that that's a kind of an opportune time, that when the deal doesn't go through, the seller is kind of disappointed and might be very open to something. And how did you find him? Was it just an ordinary follow-up on an expired lead?
Yep, through my
Yep.
post leads. Mhm.
Bob asked, good question. I assume everybody knows. So thank you, Bob, for giving me a gut check. Explain Creative Finance Real Estate Association. Creative Financing Real Estate Association, if you're not an associate, you can get certified. You can get the certification on your website by going through the QLS course. If you haven't gone through it, there's a sort of a little test / quiz on, thank you, Kenneth, for muting while you're in the tornado. There's a little quiz on each module. And you go through that, and I forget, maybe Rusty knows if it's 70% you got to get or whatever it is. And at the end, you're certified through the Creative Finance and Real Estate Association. If you're an associate, you're accredited, next level, because you're with us. I will tell you, I've been saying this for years. I've been saying this since the course only had 10 videos. When you go through the course, I hope everyone here has done it. I assume that when we're on these, if you go through that, you're 80 to 95% ahead of any people out there doing real estate. Fact. Because to a fault of ours, we actually have so much in there now, it takes longer to go through. People are saying, like, dumb it down. When I've had 10 videos, people got through it quicker, but I didn't feel like it was enough. I feel like you might get in trouble. There's so much stuff in there now. Yeah, we have a link, George. Pete, could someone put the link up there? You think I know it. I don't. But it's on the website. Good website as a QLS member. Where can we get a good website? We do have a new company, Jeff. I can't think of the name or the link, but email, if Pete doesn't know it, email support@Smart Real Estate Coach and ask him for the link to our website company now. We just pivoted to not do it in-house, and we do it with a company. You can have them build you a site. But you need the QLS. If the link doesn't show up here in the chat, go to the website, smartrealestatecoach.com. And you'll find there you go. Thank you. There's your link for the QLS course. And guys, listen, I say this on podcasts, so let me end on this. There's a lot of companies that market the daylights out of you to sell you courses. And guess what? You will not see them again. I hate to say it, but you won't see them again. I have them on my podcast. I had a private talk after my podcast interview once, off the air. And I asked this guy, hey, what do you do all the coaching? Can we help you with the coaching? He said, I don't care about coaching, Chris. I sell millions of dollars worth of product. I was blown away. He could care less what you do next. We have QLS for one reason. Get the students, like Rusty and the awesome students, to have a resource center that we update nonstop, ad nauseum, and they live in there. That's what it's for, so you can go do deals. I honestly, I don't want to sell you a course that you don't go do deals or you're disappointed with. It's to get you doing deals so you have a resource center for life. That's it. You own it for life, and it always changes. So it's not about pitching you a course for me. It's about getting you doing deals. Guys, have a great weekend.